Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. I just read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow and I wanted to do a review on the channel about the comic and talk about the movie that's coming out later this year. In case you don't know and if you're unfamiliar with this comic, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was written by Tom King and illustrated by Bilquis Evely and published by DC Comics. This comic first released in single issues from 2021 to 2022. It's now collected in trade paperback, so you can get this at like your local comic book store, on Amazon, or in like a Books a Million. It really it really does feel like everyone and their grandmother loves this comic. It frequently tops greatest DC comics of all time lists from major comic book focused websites. And a lot of fans also seem to love it because it ranks pretty highly on their own list. And while I do think Woman of Tomorrow is a really good comic with excellent characterization of Supergirl and beautiful art, I didn't quite fall in love with it like most people did. So in this video, I will break down everything I really liked about this comic and disliked about it, and talk about the movie adaptation that's coming out this summer. So let's talk about what I really liked about Woman of Tomorrow. And with always, with all my videos, my comic reviews, my reviews, I don't want to go much into a story discussion here because I think anyone who watches this video needs to read the comic, but I will talk a little bit about the story. The story starts with a narration from a young alien girl named Ruth, telling us her father has been brutally murdered by a low-life criminal and thief known as Krim of the Yellow Hills. This cruel act against her father causes Ruth to seek revenge against Krim, but she feels she's not strong enough to complete the task. So she's looking for a strong warrior who can help her exact revenge for her father's death. This leads her to a bar where she meets Supergirl, who's there getting drunk celebrating her 21st birthday. The two then decide to team up and track down her father's killer. And this is just a brief summary of the first issue of what happens in Woman of Tomorrow. I don't didn't want to spoil too much for you guys because with the movie coming out, I think a lot of people's going to pick up this comic and read it. I think Tom King told a good revenge story here with a lot of strong themes of overcoming loss, trauma, and grief. And I think it does have some payoff in the end. And I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something everybody else must have got from reading this, but I just feel like the story is just good. Like it didn't blow my mind or anything. I just thought it was a good story. Like, I don't feel like this is a generational story in DC Comics that will blow your mind, like a Watchmen or a Long Halloween or a Flashpoint. I think it's just a good story, not like a masterpiece of a story, if you know what I mean. I don't think it's quite as good as those that I mentioned and as good as everyone else thinks, but it's still a good story, just nothing crazy. And I think one thing that this comic just nails so well, and maybe even the best thing about it, and that's the characterization of Supergirl. I love how Tom King wrote her character in this comic and made her so much different from Superman, but also feeling like him at the same time. So, to tell you a little bit about Supergirl, Kara isn't like her cousin. She's not the Boy Scout and she doesn't share his optimism and sees the good in everyone like he does. Instead, she sees the harsh truth in people sometimes. She's a total mess who travels to different planets with red suns where she can get drunk and party, and there's a good reason for that behavior and why she does that. Kara experienced the destruction of Krypton and the loss of her people, and she has a lot of trauma and guilt from that event. And that's why she's the way she is. But in some ways she's also very similar to her cousin. And I just really loved her characterization in this comic, and it's one of the best things about it. And I think that's one of the main reasons why everyone loves this comic so much. Another thing that I really loved about this comic is the world that was created here. It's absolutely stunning. It's a world that's firmly rooted in science fantasy, and that is a strong blend of both sci fi and fantasy. Ruth and Kara travel to a bunch of beautiful locations here with a lot of quirky and likable characters, and it makes the world of Woman of Tomorrow feel very memorable. Like I feel like this is a very memorable world that was created here. And this comic just has some jaw-dropping artwork. Bilquis Evely did the art here, and it's truly something to behold. This is quite possibly one of the greatest colored comic books out there right now. It's colored so well that you can just stop at a page and just go into a trance with how good it looks. You can stop at any page and it could very well be your new wallpaper on your phone with just how good it looks. The colors in Bill Quisevely's art just really pop out and immediately grab your attention. If you don't read this comic for the story or the characterization of Supergirl, I think you should at least flip through the pages and just appreciate how good the art here is because it's truly great. Like that's the second best thing about the comic in my opinion. Now, I want to move on from what I enjoyed about this comic and talk about some things that I didn't quite enjoy about this comic. As I mentioned before, Woman of Tomorrow tells a good revenge story that has heavy themes of trauma and loss. But I think the constant narration from Ruth just kind of drags the story down a bit for me. I was fine with it in the beginning of the story, but as the story went on, I just thought the long-winded narrations from Ruth just really bogs the story down a bit. There were so many times where there was a beautiful page of artwork, and instead of soaking in the beautiful art, it was just bogged down by constant, long-winded narrations when there really didn't need to be. I feel like if this comic had less narration from Ruth, I would have enjoyed the story so much more. And while we're on the topic of the characters, I don't particularly find Ruth that interesting or cool of a character. I mean, I think she does go on a good character arc in this story, but she's just a character that I don't really care that much about. And I kind of wish the story wasn't told from her perspective as much as it is. I also didn't find Krim that interesting of a villain either. I think his visual design is just kind of boring, and he's just really unlikable, and not in a good kind of unlikable way that a villain should be. But overall, I liked Woman of Tomorrow, and I think you should read it because it's a good comic at the end of the day. I don't think it's as good as everyone makes it out to be, but it's still an enjoyable read, and there's a lot of things that I really do like about this comic. I'm definitely going to reread Woman of Tomorrow when the movie is about to release and see if I still feel the same way about it. Maybe on my reread, I'll appreciate more things about it like everybody else does. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time discussing the Supergirl movie that's coming out later this year. I want to give my thoughts on the trailer and give my predictions for how I think this movie will be perceived by the general audience. I thought this teaser looked pretty good and it gets you excited for what's to come, and so far it looks like a pretty faithful adaptation of the original comic. The only thing I thought looked a little bit off about this teaser was the colors. The colors looked a little washed out and saturated compared to the comic, which is so vibrant and colorful. And even Superman, that came out last year, which was heavily praised for looking so vibrant and colorful and looking like it came straight out of a comic. I don't know. I don't think it's a big issue. It's more like my own personal nitpick. But maybe this issue will get lined out by the time the main trailer comes out and the full movie release. And I think it's interesting that they're adding Lobo to this story because he wasn't in the original comic. I'm excited to see Jason Momoa portray him in live action. I think he's a perfect fit, and I know this is one of his dream roles to play. And I'm happy to see him back in the DCU playing Lobo. I think adding Lobo to the story will improve a lot of things, especially for me, where I didn't find Krim that interesting of a character. And there'll probably be a lot of cool action sequences between Supergirl and Lobo. I really do think Lobo will be a standout character and improve the story. And even though I don't love this comic like a lot of people do, I still think that it's a perfect to adapt into a movie. And I see why James Gunn chose this comic to adapt into a movie. I can't wait for a lot of scenes from this comic to play out on the big screen. And this is where I will talk slight story spoilers. So if you haven't read the comic, you might want to skip ahead in this video. But here we go. So, like I said, I can't wait for some of these scenes. I can't wait for when Supergirl takes this red pill that temporarily allows her to gain her powers back and defeat a space dragon. In the comic, it was just this really cool scene, and it had beautiful art to back it up. And it was just a real spectacle to look at, and I can't wait to see how this will look in live action. Another scene I really want to see this is when Supergirl rides her super horse named Comet across the galaxy at light speed to escape this globe of death called a Mordru globe. In the comic, this was a really cool scene because we see Supergirl riding Comet at light speed across the galaxy to outrun Krim's little globe of death. And in the comic, this was just a really awesome scene. And when I was reading it, I was like, man, this is just going to make for an awesome action set piece. And it's going to be one of the big highlights of the movie for a lot of people because it's just going to look so cool in live action. You just got to trust me on that. I think this movie is just going to be a crowd favorite, and it's going to sit well with a lot of casual moviegoers. It's definitely up there for me as one of my most anticipated superhero movies of the year, alongside other superhero projects like Clayface, Spider Man Brand New Day, Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and Invincible Season 3. I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with Millie Alcock in this movie, and I think she'll be one of the most talked about things in this movie. You can tell she just has a lot of charisma and charm, and she just has the look of a good Supergirl, and I think she'll really nail the character here. I think a lot of people are going to find Lobo extremely cool as well. I'm confident people will love that the movie has such a great look to it, and it's a galaxy hopping journey where you travel to a multitude of vibrant and diverse looking places in space. And a lot of people will appreciate how the setting is so different from Superman. But yeah, I'm just really excited for this movie to come out. I'm just excited for this new DCU, and I just hope it's a really good movie, and I hope it solves a lot of the issues that I had with the comic. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I've been trying to get this video out for a few weeks, and I'm happy that I finally did. But until next time.